What's going on, guys? This is Mars Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, we're back at it, and this time around we're just going to do random invasions. Right now, I haven't been in the forest. I haven't been doing any what you might consider formal PvP matches. Neither have I been in the Coliseum. And speaking of Coliseum, I'm pretty sure that many of you guys know by now that we have the patch 1.06 in addition to the Prepare to Die edition for all of those who were willing to make the investment. But I mean, me, like I said before, I haven't really been doing any of these formal PvP. I haven't been in the Undead Burg, haven't been in the Dark Root Moonlight Butterfly area, nor have I been there just kind of, hosting it up over in the Ulas Hill Township. For the most part, I just been kind of like invading everywhere. Right? Invasions are pretty fun. You don't have to deal with any formalities. You never really know what you're going to run into. In some cases you could be in a 1v1 situation, whereas in others you can go, worst case scenario, up to a 3v1 situation. And that excitement, well actually let me take that back. That situation wherein you're not really sure what you're going to run into is what brings the excitement even more so than what it would do in any ordinary PvP match. Because granted, I enjoy PvP, and I think most matches are exciting to the extent that you're kind of dealing with a reasonably experienced player. But I think it's even more exciting when you invade a world and you basically don't even know what you're going to run into. Now, granted, it can be frustrating, especially when you may run into a 2v1 or 3v1 and you run into guys with hornet rings, but it is what it is. It's a part of the game. So we're just doing some random invasions, and for the most part, we're just invading everywhere, right? Lost Eyes of Laeth, Demon Ruins, Painted World, the Catacombs. I was pretty much everywhere, which is good. Now, one thing I will say with regard to the Prepare to Die edition, I have really run into a whole bunch of higher level players. Right now, for some of you guys that may be kind of new to the game, you may ask yourself, dude, how do you know whether a player is high level or not? Well, this particular build that I'm playing right now, I think it's a level, well, actually there it is right there, I'm a level 125. Right? So if I'm playing somewhere or around my level, right, when I kill them, I should earn somewhere around, let's just say 49,000 souls, somewhere around there, 45 to 49,000 souls. But I've been in a situation wherein I've been winning like 200,000, 100,000, and in some cases 877,000. Right, and I don't know if these guys just pretty much prep themselves to basically be, victorious all throughout the Prepare to Die edition. I don't know what it is, or I don't know if guys just wanted to bring their A game with regard to the new content. But whatever the reason, I've definitely run into a whole bunch of high-level players. And if you notice, I have like 6 million souls. Now, whereas that's not really uncommon if you do a lot of PvP, it's not that I was necessarily doing that much PvP. Lately, I've just really been running into a whole bunch of high-level players. Which is good, but at the same time, I think in most cases, well, at least in my experience, a lot of the higher level guys are not really all that experienced in PvP. I think a lot of the guys who have the most experience stay around the soul levels that are more popular. And when I say soul levels that are more popular, I would say anywhere between 100 to, let's just say, 130. Right, because I think most people know that you get most of your PvP, and actually I'll say before the patch, you get most of your PvP somewhere between 120 and 130. Right, But now that we have the patch, the Coliseum, and the prepare to die edition areas, I think a lot of people will now be playing somewhere at or around soul level 100. Right. So, I mean, I've had a lot of guys ask, do I think 100 would be the new standard? Right. And I'll say no. I have a couple soul level 100 builds, but for the most part, most of my builds are in the same soul level range, 120 to 130, right? With 130 being the absolute highest that I will go, because I mean there's really no reason to go past 130. I mean, in most cases, my hybrid builds are somewhere between 125 and 130. But I mean, that's with all my builds. Actually, I don't really have any 120 builds. I would say 90% of my builds are somewhere around 125 and no higher than 130. And as a matter of fact, I won't even say 95%. I'll say all of my builds are no higher than 130. But most of them somewhere between 125 and 130. And I have two exceptions for the Coliseum, for which I haven't actually even visited. Now, I am aware of a lot of the hotshots who are on top of the leaderboards. Shout out to Pep. Last time I checked, I was kind of checking on his stream, and I think he's like in the 60s with regard to the soul level 100 bracket. Another shout out to good old Hell Servant 23. He was PvPing in the 101 to 200 bracket, and I think he was just using his standard 125 build, maybe 130 at the most. And at least on the first night, I haven't really checked it within the last few days, and this is on the PS3. At least on the first night, I know he had a streak somewhere in the 20s, which is awesome. I know Roan is another guy. Some of these other Twitch dudes, I know Unforeseen, Roan, and a lot of these other guys that frequent the Twitch have been doing pretty well. I know, I think RB Frosty, I think that's his name. I kind of checked him out in the Coliseum. But, I haven't really visited that area. I've been basically busy doing a lot of random invasions. I might end up visiting it. But a lot of those guys are definitely hotshots. But, I mean, along with the hotshots, you have a lot of guys who, I mean, basically they just want to get the name of the leaderboards, and they're basically willing to do anything. Which, I mean, is kind of good and bad depending upon how you see it. Right? Because in some instances, competition can be a good thing. In other situations, I think competition has the potential to leave the best, or actually to produce the worst out of people. Now, what exactly do I mean? And actually, this can be seen in a lot of instances. I know a lot of guys, and I'm not kind of trying to make this some type of academic conversation, but I know with regard to, let's just say, capitalism, right? And I'm not making an argument for any economic system. I'm just using it as an example. A lot of guys will say, hey, I mean, it's all about competition and profits. I mean, what's wrong with competition? Well, actually, there's nothing wrong with competition in and of itself. I mean, to be able to compete, there's nothing wrong with it. But at the same time, sometimes, depending upon what the incentive is, people are willing to, what I would say, actually, I can't really say lower their standards. I would just say, I don't even know how to word it. I don't really want to say lower your standards, because you never know what a person's standard is to begin with. But I'll just say a lot of times whenever you have something that you're striving for, there leaves a potential for you to kind of do whatever you have to do to be victorious. Right? And that's with regard to, making money, getting your name on the leaderboards, whatever the case may be. Sometimes cheating is not cheating, but competition can really bring out the best of people. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys know one of those high-speed biker dudes. He just got recently caught up in a scandal. Right? Now, some people may say, well, look, dude, I don't understand why he would have to do that. I mean, it's good sportsmanship. Everyone's competing fairly and evenly. But guess what, dude? A lot of these guys, you know, they want to get checks. They like to get endorsements. And a lot of these checks, these medals and these endorsements, it's just a little motivation for people to say, you know what, let me just do a few performance enhancers. You know, let me kind of do a little something to give me an edge. Right? Or you'll have some of these companies who will say, you know what, I need to sell as much as my product as, you know, as a matter of fact, here's a perfect opportunity. Let's just say the music industry. For a lot of you guys that are kind of familiar with early hip-hop, right? The early hip-hop, some of the music that I grew up on, right? I think it was good music. You know, a lot of it was all about, you know, having fun, partying, right? And a lot of the other forms of hip-hop at least talked about a good message. I remember they had a guy, Young MC, I think his name is, Just Bust a Move, right? That was fun times. I remember when Digital Underground came out with the Humpty Dance. That was fun times, right? That's when the music was fun. But now it seems like people are willing to do whatever they can do to sell out the art form of hip-hop just to sell records. And people are duped into thinking that the more vulgar you are, the more explicit that you are, the more sexualized that you are, you know, the more materialistic you are, the more you will sell. And I'm not inclined to believe that, right? I think there's a market for people who wants to hear that, but I think the vast majority of the people just do not want to hear that trash, right? So that's just another example of what I mean by what people will do when they have an incentive to win, or at least what they think is winning, right? So enough about that, but for the most part, that's why I'm not really in the Coliseum. Now, I will visit it, right? But I just really do not want to get frustrated by being in a situation where I'm fighting, my opponent gets, you know, one up in the win column, and then I'm just chasing them around for the rest of the 3 minutes. I don't want to deal with that, right? Or I don't want to be in the situation where I'm just dealing with a backstab fisher with his little hornet ring. And granted, it's been there. But, I mean, you know, when I hit the Coliseum, I remember when I was on the PC edition. When I was on the Coliseum, I was looking for good matches, right? And a lot of times I've heard a lot of people say, you know, the Coliseum should be designed for good matches. But when you have an incentive, right, that incentive meaning getting your name on the leaderboards, I don't think that a lot of people are thinking about good matches. I think people like to pride themselves after saying, look at my streak. You know, that's me on there. Everybody can see for themselves that I went, you know, 20 matches straight or 30 matches straight. In some cases, 60 matches straight. And I think in some cases, not all, right? Because I'm pretty sure that if you go like 100 matches, you're not just going for fun all 100. Some of the matches you may do what some perceive to be dirty, right? Whereas other matches you may, you know, especially if you think your opponent is kind of inexperienced, you're more likely to just go ahead to play straight up, right? So it is what it is about the Coliseum. I'll visit there, but, I mean, am I really striving to get on the leaderboards? Not really. As a matter of fact, I think there's so many good players out there, I don't even know how far I would get. I mean, probably within the teens or something, because there's some hotshot players out there that are way above my league. Because, I don't know, I've said plenty of times, listen, dude, despite what you guys may think based upon my commentaries, or despite what you may think based upon what you may see in some of my vids, I'm actually just an average player. Average meaning I win a lot and I lose a lot, right? Now, some of you guys who are relatively new to the game may think to yourself, well, you're good because you can parry. Listen up, dudes. There's nothing fancy about parrying, right? It's just all about learning a little bit about detail, right? Experimenting a little bit, not being afraid to get hit, not being afraid to lose, and just experiment. That's all. Nothing fancy. Noticing patterns, paying a little attention, It's nothing fancy. I don't do anything special. You know, a lot of these guys have their little hot shot moves, right? Like their 360 bow action, or the roll BS, or some of these parry roll BSers. That's like way above my... I'm like not even in that league. I'm just an average player. Because if you guys notice, I don't do anything particularly fancy, right? I just incorporate R1, R2 attacks, running attacks, parries, blocking, and dodging. Nothing fancy. Nothing special, right? The only difference is I have a channel. That's it. But there are a lot of guys who not only are good as me, but are far better than me. So this is why a lot of times I would suggest to a lot of you guys, especially to a lot of you newer guys who may be under the impression that just because a person streams, that it is something, you know, therefore special about their gameplay. No, it's not, dude. They just have something that can be showcased. Right? And I'm no exception. Only an uploader. Right? Alright, so we're back at it. Next, I'm kind of experimenting a little bit with the katana. I rarely use this weapon, although, I mean, I know how to use it. As a matter of fact, I think, I don't think anyone could not use a katana. You know, I mean, because it's fast. Basically, I mean, as long as you swing, you're going to hit. I don't think there's anything particularly difficult about using a katana. I mean, this moveset's pretty much as standard, right? You basically have the R1, the one-handed R1 and two-handed R1 slashing attacks for the most part, and you have the running thrust attacks. Some of the weapons have different R2s, but for the most part, that's just the same skill set. It has a very fast recovery speed with regard to swinging, so as little to no penalty with regard to having to pick and choose when you attack. Because if you notice, I mean, even if you miss, your body's going to recover so fast that you can at least block, or you can dodge, you can roll, you can jump backwards. There's a lot of things that you can do. So, I mean, I think the katana is one of those, I mean, almost fail-proof type of weapon. Now, I'm not saying that just because you use a katana that you are therefore a pro. Because no, you need to incorporate a lot of other things, right? You need to incorporate dodging, you know, BSing maybe, parrying, when to attack, when not to, understanding not to get too confident with regard to thinking you're going to bleed somebody out, right? Know how to, well, actually not know how to, know when to spam the R1, know when you can, know when you can't, right? Because I think a lot of people get in a situation wherein they understand that katanas have the bleeding effect, and they think that they can just, you know, spam the R1, which is a mistake depending upon who you play, right? But, you know, learning all these things really comes from the type of people that you play against, right? And I've said this in a lot of videos. I've said this on a number of occasions. Relative to who you play against largely determines how you play and the degree to which you improve. Like I've said dozens of times, guys, I used to be one of those hornet ringing guys. Hornet ring with my rapier. Right? But once I got introduced to some of the Twitch guys, I slowly started to change the way that I play. Still nothing fancy, but it just required me to incorporate other things, other offensive strategies, other defensive strategies, other than just simply trying to go in for the quick kill. And basically that's what I think a lot of these Hornet Ring guys do, right? They just kind of go in for the quick kill, which is nothing wrong with that. I just think that sometimes when you are, and actually let me kind of say this. I think sometimes involving yourself around the same group of players all the time kind of messes you up. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? If you're always around the Twitch guys, which is good, you will get into this mind frame of looking at certain things as being cheap and ridiculous, right? On the other hand, when you are always invading, you will get into the mind frame of, well, I'm just going in for the kill. I think to be an all-around player, you need a mixture of both. Involve yourself around some of these high-speed Twitch guys, mix it in every now and then with some random invasions, and I think you'll have a good balance. Alright guys, until next time, Martyr's Brigade is